Hello again everyone, Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about zodiac signs and parenting and giving my vantage point, perspective, and take on this. And I'm going to go through all 12 zodiac signs. I'm going to start with Aries and then work my way in order till I get to Pisces. Now the first sign, Aries, well Aries, when I look at this sign, Aries is obviously very aggressive, very assertive. They will speak their mind if a child is not doing something properly and they're not competent somehow or what have you. The thing about Aries is they need to really look at the impatience thing and make sure that they don't become overly impatient if they don't have success with some area of their child right away, because some things do take time. It takes time for a child to evolve intellectually and whatever in many other ways. So that is one thing to look at with Aries. And Aries arguably has unbridled fortitude and courage, and we can I think it's safe to say that Aries above any other sign will stand up for their child very, very quickly and faster than the other signs on average if the child is getting a raw deal somehow. So that's another thing to look at with Aries. Now with Taurus, now we're dealing with a completely different kettle of fish with the zodiac sign Taurus, because Taurus is a sign that is known for its patience and persevering attributes. Now with Taurus, the temperament is apparent. I see them as like having a very even temperament and disposition, and will be very patient regarding many elements and aspects of the child. However, what they need to guard against is that Taurus threshold of endurance, and may put up with certain things for a certain amount of time. There may be certain transgressions by the child, but after a while they have to worry about maybe blowing up and maybe blowing something out of proportion, because possibly letting that suppressed anger build up. But Taurus is very loyal and steadfast, and I see them as making very good parents. Now Gemini, well Gemini, we see this sign obviously very versatile, multifaceted. They're obviously got a good, many of them are very vivacious and kind of easygoing, cheerful personalities. And I think I see them as parents that encourage your child very strongly in matters pertaining to communication and intellectual ability, and may encourage a child to be very studious. Now Gemini is not known for their persistence or tenacity, and they just have to make sure that if they say something to the child, that they don't forget about it, and they make sure that they're ingraining what they think they need for the child on a consistent basis, whether they're indoctrinating some belief or what have you. So that's really the thing for Gemini to look at. Now we look at the next sign, Cancer. Now Cancer is very obviously very feeling, very emotional and sentimental. And when I look at the zodiac sign Cancer, I see Cancer as being a good parent. They have to guard against maybe being oversensitive to a child, and have patience as far as that goes, because Cancer is a sign that is obviously very sensitive to derisive or derogatory remarks, or something that might be seen as ridicule. And in a child, especially in their younger years, they don't always know what to say, how to actually say it, and sometimes I think an unintentional slight may be perceived in a way where a Cancer personality may react very emotionally to. So I think that's something to look at. But Cancers are very compassionate and sensitive and sympathetic, and really give the child a lot of that TLC, or tender loving care. So anyway, the next sign I'll look at is Leo. And Leo can make, like Taurus, a very loyal and steadfast parent, very magnanimous, very generous and giving. They may need to guard against extravagance. There is such a thing as perhaps giving too much, at least as far as from a material sense. And also sometimes giving a little bit too much materially, it might, and the child may not really learn the value of the dollar, so to speak, as much in those instances. But Leos, despite they could be a little bit domineering, a little bit too controlling as far as maybe parents go, but they are very giving and very loyal and very generous, and they will undoubtedly, Leos can make very good parents, exceptional parents for those reasons. And like Aries, they have that good courage and fortitude about them, and really they're the type to stand by their children thick and thin, through adversity, through positive or what have you, trials and tribulations. And anyway, the next sign, Virgo. Well, Virgo is a sign we look at as very reticent and it can be very introverted and shy, but they are very, like Gemini, I see Virgos emphasizing the intellectual thing with the child, the intellectual evolution and development. The ability to analyze a situation, I think, is very strong with Virgo, and I think this can come out in as far as the way their approach to their child. And Virgos are also very meticulous and punctilious with details, and they may encourage the child to be very detail oriented. Always make sure they dot their I's and capitalize things when they need to be. And Virgo is obviously, it's a very fastidious sign, and they emphasize cleanliness, and this is a sure thing for Virgo parent, I think, and at least for the majority of Virgos, sun, moon, or ascendant, will emphasize the cleanliness thing very strongly with their child. So as far as hygiene and having organization, like with their room, for example. Now, the next sign look at is Libra. And Libra is known to be that diplomat, to be fair and equitable about things. And if Libra has more than one child, you could rest assured that responsibilities will be dispersed very evenly in very equitable manner among all the children. So you don't have to worry necessarily about about the parent being partial or biased toward one or more of the children. And they will emphasize things connected with justice, I would say, in standing up for beliefs. If something is illegal that is done to the child, they will be one of the first people to stand up for that, because despite Libras being often being very peaceable and tranquil and passive, they also will stand up for their rights and beliefs when they have to, and they feel that is imperative. So the next sign, Scorpio. Well, Scorpio, being a fixed sign, can be very immutable and very rigid, but Scorpio can make very loyal and persistent, very constant with their parenting, and they could be a little bit domineering, I think similar to Leo. Scorpios have to guard against the control factor and make sure that they give, I think, their child that right amount of space, and not to be kind of like that hovercraft and be overly domineering, because Scorpios, though may not do this maliciously, they may be a little bit more controlling than the average sign, and I think that's what they maybe need to guard against. And I think that's one of the things to look at. And Scorpios, they are very passionate, and being a water sign, obviously they're very feeling, and Scorpios can make really astounding or outstanding parents for those reasons that I mentioned. So anyway, the next sign I want to talk about is Sagittarius. Now, many of you know Sagittarius is very ebullient and expansive. They put a lot of enthusiasm and exuberance into their things, their activities. Sagittarius can be very sports-minded, and they might this might be the sign I look at where they may encourage their child for outdoor activities, sports, leisure, things, being able to enjoy oneself and being able to expand outside that home box, and being it's one of those things where Sagittarius is very optimistic as well, and will often try to see the bright side of things with his or her child or children. And would just remember that Sagittarius, that they need to make sure that they're grounded and make sure that they're always seeing the positive and the negative, and not to be have all this positive always overshadow the negative completely is one thing to look at. And also Sagittarius, being a fire sign, could also be very blunt and very, and sometimes lack tact and diplomacy with what they say. So sometimes those sharp arrows of truth and veracity can maybe hurt a child potentially, especially in their younger years. So that's something that Sagittarius may need to look at, to maybe cut down on, if in fact the Sagittarius parent is maybe being a little bit overly outspoken and blunt with their statements toward the child. So next sign, Capricorn. Well, Capricorn, we know, is very serious, and they're very businesslike in their manner, very orthodox, and they might ingrain a lot of traditional values into their child. And this is also a sign, look at Capricorn being very serious, is not really the most animated, and will be very consistent with their personality and with their expectations of their child, I think, and also will emphasize the ambitions and the career objectives. And this may be that sign that may really strongly encourage maybe having that higher education, having the being premeditative in terms of the child's studies, and really doing what needs to be done to be successful in life. And keep in mind that even though Capricorn is known to be like an undemonstrative sign and not showing emotion that readily, that when Capricorn in a natal or solar chart will have the zodiac sign Cancer on the 7th house cusp. So they will readily show a little bit more emotion in their relationships with others, and that is including children as well. So anyway, next sign, Aquarius. Well, Aquarius, we know that it could be very unorthodox, very eclectic, it can be innovative as well. Aquarians, they will basically, they're the way. Aquarius is a fixed sign, and even though, and being an air sign, they can be very amiable and amicable, they're also going to be very fixed in the way they raise their children, and regardless of what others may think. And they will instill that, being an air sign, an intellectual side to their child very strongly, and I would believe in most cases. And they may encourage the child to be what he or she wants to be, and obviously in most cases as far as long as it's something positive. In other words, be true to their identity, to their personality, to their character, and not to deviate from it just because somebody else might not agree with it, or just because it might not seem quote unquote conventional. So I think that is the thing to look at. And Aquarians, although on the negative, they may need to be careful as parents, because the Aquarian side is often, it can strongly emphasize that friendship, that universal friend thing. And just remember that the child can be a friend as well as a relative, but make sure that you are looking at the child more strongly as far as the child goes in that aspect and element. I'm sure most do, but I think you might have some here and there that might be kind of forget once in a while, in a way, and say, well, and look at them as just like a person thing, where it's a parent to child relationship. So that is something to look at. And last but not least, the zodiac sign Pisces. Well, Pisces is an interesting sign, because Pisces can be indecisive, ambivalent, and even nebulous, but Pisces, being a water sign, is very compassionate and very sympathetic. Emotions can dominate a Pisces, and like Cancer, I think they need to be concerned with perhaps overreacting in an emotional manner to maybe an unintentional slight from the child. And Pisces can be very idealistic as well, and must really make sure that they're not overlooking possible iniquitous acts by the child or transgressions, and really make sure that they're seeing everything. They're looking at all the positive, looking at all and looking at the negative as well, and knowing this and being cognizant of this builds the child to be the best he or she can be. Well, anyway, people, also I want to say one last thing about Pisces. Is about also being, sorry about that, I itched up top of my nose there. I'm itching for information. That's my Gemini moon coming out. Anyway, people, I'm sorry, I wanted to say one more thing about Pisces. Pisces has to guard against being, I guess, unrealistic, and that can be as far as the expectations for the child. That's the one last thing I wanted to say regarding the zodiac sign Pisces and possibly their approach as parents. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for zodiac signs and parenting. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be continuing my series on the signs on the house cusps in a natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.